Welcome to I Am Goddess Collective podcast, a sacred space for empowerment through modern magic, spiritual activism, and reclaiming your power. I am your host, Nixie Marie, feng shui practitioner, earth activist, and mystic, here to support and inspire your journey in becoming the change you wish to see in this world. That change starts within. Join myself and fellow thought leaders, metaphysical experts, and luminaries each week as we explore practical and magical ways to living in your highest alignment. Your journey as an empowered goddess begins here. Let's dive in. Hello, sisters. Welcome back to another episode of I Am Goddess Collective podcast. We are currently entering another new month, which always means we have the lovely Mimi Truong on the show today. Hello, Mimi.
Hello. So happy to be here despite the condition of the world.
Oh my gosh. I like anything podcast related right now. I'm so happy to be doing and being present with. It feels like we've got Zoom, we've got a mic, we've got home, everybody's at home. So it's exciting. It's like the things that I'm like, ooh, what do I have on my schedule today? Oh, got a podcast interview. Yay. I'm so excited. So Mimi, of course, as many of you know, is our resident astrologer, and she comes on every single first week of the month when we release the podcast, and she shares with us the astral insight, sort of what's happening, what's going on. And it's really a good reset, sort of like staying in alignment with the stars, and also just keeping up with the times from the perspective of the astral realms. So I think we are both kind of agreeing that right now it's so interesting these times. Like, how are you feeling right now, Mimi, through the current pandemic we are all witnessing at this time?
Yeah, I think I find myself extremely lucky to have what I have, be where I am. I think in the beginning of all of this, I was getting annoyed and irritated, not because of the virus, but because of the mandates of the government saying, well, you can't leave the house. It's for your own protection. And the moon in Aquarius in me, like this little rebel in me that goes, what do you mean I can't go out, right? And I got upset. I'm like, I'm going to go out because I want to go out. Da, 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 da. So I kind of had this little fit. And then I caught myself asking myself, well, why am I so upset? What am I really upset about? And, I came back to my senses and I just basically coached myself out of this. But that was my initial reaction. It's like, oh, people are overreacting. But then, I understand this is like a health issue. And I've actually personally and I don't know if your listeners are old enough to remember this, but do you remember back in, oh my gosh, I would say I was 17. So I think I was this is more than 20 years ago. So you guys were probably babies, but there was a meningitis outbreak. Do you remember this?
When was this? What year?
This was 1995 or something like that. So most of you were probably
I was
just born.
I was 4 years old, so I don't remember.
So there was a huge meningitis outbreak, and there's two types of meningitis. There's a bacterial meningitis and a viral meningitis. And schools, it was rampant. Kids were just catching this bacteria left and right.
Wow.
But bacteria meningitis, you die within 24 hours. It just attacks your brain and it disintegrates your brain matter, and then you just die. So there was a huge outbreak back in the days. And obviously all the parents were freaking out. And then we had to close down schools. And I caught the viral version. It's not a bacterial meningitis, but it also attacks my brain. So I didn't know what it was. And I just basically passed out. And I went to the hospital. They had to quarantine me, and they ran all sorts of tests to then eventually they found out what it was, because they didn't know if it was contagious. And there's no cure. Just like this COVID-19, there's really no cure for virus other than, yes, a vaccine, but you'd have to develop the vaccine, right? So the way that a virus multiply is the more you move, the more it multiplies and attacks your body. That's for viral meningitis. I'm not saying that this is what's happening with COVID-19. But so all I could do was literally lay in bed at home and not move for an entire week. Wow. And I remember my parents had to feed me literally from bed because I couldn't move. And I'm just thinking about like now, putting myself back in the present time, that I am blessed that I don't have this virus. And I am counting the blessings that I am safe and I am healthy.
A hood of that. I mean, wow, what a crazy story, Mimi. I had no idea that you went through. How old were you when you went through that?
I was 17.
Wow. That's quite fascinating. I mean, I think though the point that you're really making and reminding us to bring back that state of gratitude. And I've been seeing so many, leaders and things on social media really come out around come back to gratitude, be in a state of what you're grateful for everything that's around you. And I really think the only way to get through these times of crisis, times of change, times of really instant, like forced transformation is really just being in the present moment, coming back to your breath, realizing, oh, I've got water here to drink. I've got food here to eat. I've got a support system. I've got a sister to call. Like I keep saying that because I think that's really the same thing you're stating, to just be grateful, be in a place of like appreciation for your health. And I mean, all the little small things start to matter so much more. And to me, that's medicine. The virus has medicine, everything has medicine, and I am grateful for the medicine it's bringing forth, whether that be, the shadow or the light. There's both sides to every story. But I love that you kind of started off the show with that, because I think that's a good reminder for us all to be in. Starting a gratitude journal is probably a really great thing to do while you're at home in quarantine, hopefully not sick and sick with the virus. I have been noticing a lot more people definitely that are maybe within my not immediate circle of friends, but kind of extended out, that I have seen come down with the virus. And, it's an interesting time about that. What are your thoughts around, are you like afraid to get it, Mimi? Do you feel like you're invincible? Do you feel like it's coming at you, or how do you feel around that?
My mindset is truly from the space of what you focus on is what you create. And that's the whole magic of manifestation, both in the positive and the negative. So I do not experience myself in the fear of, oh my gosh, what if I'm going to get it, right? That's just not how I think. I really think into, well, okay, now that I've got to be at home, what can I do? Like, I get excited. I'm an introvert, so it helps for the introverts to be at home. And so I rejoice in the fact of, okay, well, I will quarantine myself and then enjoy the little things of be able to spend the weekend just watching Netflix, cooking every other day, doing the laundry, and like these little things. I'm not focusing on, oh my gosh, am I going to catch it? I'm just focusing on, oh, well, what are all the things that I get to do now that I'm at home, basically 24/7. So for me, it's very enjoyable.
Well,
so no fear on my end. What about you?
Well, I wouldn't say fear. Fear is an interesting thing, especially in this state of affairs, because fear is, I think, what's permeating the collective consciousness. And fear, worry, shame, all of these emotions or these ways of operating, to me, are things that, we've all, to some degree, I think, have been working on within ourselves to deprogram, to pay attention to identify and recognize, well, what is the voice of fear? What is the voice of my true higher self? So I actually feel really, really proud of the work that I've done and how prepared I am for this state of crisis, and the amount of leadership I've seen come out of not only myself, but people that, are maybe not natural born leaders. They don't think they are, but all of a sudden they're coming out, they're sharing their gifts, their music, their medicine, and like making their mess become their medicine. And so it feels so, it just feels like I feel okay. I feel grateful. I feel humbled by this experience. I'm currently going through some pretty big shifts in my life around what I'm going to be doing. And so that's a little scary, but also through that, I feel this like opening and this opportunity to shift. So it's been an interesting ride. Like some of it's felt really heavy. Some of it's felt really easy, but I think that what's important through all of this is to feel whatever is coming up, and even if fear is what is dominating any of our realities at that current moment in time, to just first identify it as fear, and I mean, if anyone here is guilty of the toilet paper or the things and like running out, it's okay. We never know how we're going to respond when we're in a state of crisis. That is all really unknown. However, when you do identify it, it's like, okay, now how do I shift from here?
Yep.
So that's sort of my 2 cents, how I've been feeling and navigating through everything. A lot more tenderness, a lot more gentleness.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've been asking myself, okay, I know how to go really fast. Like fast is my MO, but how can I go really slow right now? How much slower can I go? How much less can I get done? So, and it's kind of interesting because here we are kind of in Aries season. And usually during Aries, I feel like I'm on fire. I'm like getting a lot of stuff done. But, as we turn to the stars here with our lady of expertise in that realm, like how does all this, is it written in the stars? Could we have anticipated that? How do we navigate this season with the current state of affairs?
Yeah, I mean, all the astrologers online are all talking about how does the transits of the planets a reflection of this virus outbreak. And it's always in hindsight, because for the last 10 years, astrologers were anticipating this big cluster of planets in Capricorn that you and I have been talking about for months now, even in 2019. We've been talking about it. We recognize the general energy, but never can we know that this is exactly how it's turning out. So, but where, I can pinpoint to what is a specific planet that is at play here. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's interesting. It's like the geeky, nerdy side of me that is super interested in learning about it. And it will be helpful for, looking into the future. But for most people, it doesn't really matter, right? And I've been also looking at all the past like pandemic and looking at the transits, like, are there certain patterning that we're seeing? So yes, Saturn very much at play, but it wasn't always Saturn in Capricorn. There's the Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, where all these big planets are far away in the galaxy. Those are planets that are constantly, the way that they interact with each other creates these sudden outbursts of pandemic and these activities. Wow. They're sudden, they're big. They all have some sort of quote unquote maybe purpose. There's the scientific part that, these are just viruses that are growing in animals and how they spread. But from a spiritual and astrological standpoint, understanding why they come about. And there's a lot of interpretation. But I think that if we read all of the different healers and practitioners that is tuning into the universe and understanding what is the whole point and purpose and impact of this pandemic, at the end of the day, we all share common themes. And it's like you said, it's all about this spread is a big message from the universe for us to just stop and slow down. And that is how we restructure. And you and I have talked about so many times the restructuring of politics, of businesses, of the economy over and over again. Yeah, it's all really Capricorn at play. Now, but we've always wondered, well, what is the event that will precipitate this? Well, here we are months later, seeing how it all happened with the Jupiter. Jupiter always magnify. So Jupiter being in Capricorn, getting closer to Pluto, which is the planet of transformation, of death and rebirth. That is the interruption, the outbreak and outburst of something that has been stretched out to the max. And then there's an explosion. There is this sudden rupture in the structure that causes sudden loss of like death, literally and metaphorically, that we've got to completely change the way we face reality, Capricorn, and the real things that matters. And we've talked about Uranus in Taurus was all about there's a disruption in our resources, in our finances, in what we value. So now suddenly all these energies are coming at play to validate these are the energies that are coming through, and for us to recognize it was absolutely necessary because our world, our universe, the way that we have interacted with the world, with businesses, with ourselves, with the people in our lives, with work, with our family, is not working.
Wow.
But we're not, but as humans, we're not, as much as we do the work and we tap into consciousness, we're humans, we're very, very stubborn. We're going to be like, no, I'm going to do whatever I want, right? I'm going to do what I've been always doing. And it's a survival mode of I've got to work to pay the bills. I have got to do this so that I can be seen, be da, 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 da. And we're chasing, it's like this rat race that we've been in. And even though we do talk about the environment, we do talk about caring for others, but we don't really do it until these things happen. And now we're being faced with, oh yeah? Do you really care about the planet? Okay, well, let's test it. Right. Oh yeah? Do you really care about your work? Okay, let's test it. So these are all testing grounds. And we have to be putting ourselves in these extreme circumstances to pull ourselves away from our day-to-day, the way that we operate, because we're on autopilot.
Absolutely. I am so relieved. In essence, this is actually going to be my first, when this comes out, this will be my first official week that Nixie Dust Cleaning will be closed temporarily for the, during this time. And it was a really hard decision to make. I definitely went through a roller coaster of emotions, like coming to terms with that decision. But at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? So much of what has been built and why I think the core, once I looked at the foundational reasons of why that business really was built, a lot of it can come from old paradigms. And, going into this systemized way of thinking, this idea of security, this idea of what a foundation is supposed to look like. And that to me is the old system that we've been talking about is coming to this death cycle. So it's been kind of a really big trip because a part of me, I've been completely reborn through the creation of that. But then also part of me is now dying through the closing of the doors. And while this is temporary, I don't know where we'll be in a month from now, 2 months from now. Things are so uncertain. And so it's about now, okay, shifting my focus and taking a pause and breathing more and going inward. And I think that that's the big invitation here, that if you are in an opportunity to not work right now, instead of worrying about all these financial, where is it going to come from? I think this is where we're going to see a birth of creatives, artists, musicians to really come to the surface. Because I remember during the Great Depression times, that's when some of the greatest artists were born, because that's all we had. We had nothing more to do other than find our gifts. So I really get excited to see it in that light because, at my core, I'm an artist, and I'm so excited to just take a minute and go back into those spaces and maybe paint more and create more and create content and just do podcast. It's like all these times to shift gears. So I think that we're all I'm in it with you guys for sure. It's interesting to be sort of on both sides. And I know, Mimi, you can definitely relate, being being a mystic and also being very much one foot in the matrix. So it's such an interesting paradigm of reality, and we're getting yanked and pulled out of it's crazy that, here we are looking at the astral realms, and it's obviously right there that we're getting this sudden shift, instant. We didn't have a choice. We have zero control over what's happening. And so with that, it's well, what opportunities are we going to create? How are we going to navigate through these times? And it's really potent. It's potent medicine that is almost like a scorpion sting. I think we talked about that at one point, what that feels like. But wow, just interesting times.
Yeah, it's true what you say is and this is totally in alignment with this Aries energy moving through Chiron in Aries. Those two are energetically, the sun has been moving up until, Chiron in Aries and moving past that. And then, but still very much, there's still, the energy is still palpable in the air. And what this all means is, Chiron being the wounded healer in a sign of Aries is all about who am I? And the discovery of our authentic core of self. Because sometimes we tend to focus on who we are as it relates to the work we do out in the world, but when we're stripped away from work, okay, now we either lost our job, or we, like you said, we're so focused on, let's make money. And, I come across so many people that deep down inside, they really wanted to transition out of their jobs or do things that they really care about, but they don't know how, because we're just so torn and focused on, no, but I have to still pay the bill. Yes, there is that reality. I'm not saying that that's not a true statement, but we lose our identity along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And now if we're put in a situation where we're put in a corner and we don't have a choice, and our identity is no longer attached to the job, we can reconnect back to who really we are in our own essence. And if we are truly an artist, how do we bring that out into the world and birth that from us as source? And that's really the invitation during this time period of the sun traveling through Aries, and feeling into that medicine, because our own wound is our greatest gift. And if we allow, yeah.
Oh, and man.
But we've got to allow ourselves to recognize that and feel into that. Our greatest pain. That's what a lot, I think, the healers, like the doctors, the psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, people in the healing world. I mean, even artists, they're healers, just if you're using a different medium to express their pain. But as we choose that path, we are rechanneling and redirecting our pain and our suffering, what we did not have. That's our Chiron. What was missing in us, that we can put that energy into something that is productive. And when I say productive, it's not just necessarily financially generating, but that is truly generating in terms of worth and value to feed our soul.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty potent. I mean, it's, I think this part of the pain, this shadow, this essence of the things that we often avoid that are now coming to the surface for us to look at, or we just can't run from anymore, I guess, essentially. And I think it's going to take some time. Like, I guess, for us, it's been almost 2 weeks now here in Los Angeles, a little over that when this is released, that we've been on quarantined, and we've been on a stay-at-home order. And who knows, by now we're going to be on a mandatory lockdown. I feel it coming. And I feel like what's interesting through all this is how people respond to the orders and how we can truly be an example and a leader throughout this time. I do have an aunt who's a respiratory nurse. And so she's, reached out, and she's been, so many of the doctors have been asking, stay home, stay home, stay home. And I think it's really interesting how uncomfortable staying home is for so many people. And to just look at that, if that's uncomfortable for you, take a look at it. Why does it feel uncomfortable? Pull all of that out, because you might not have even known, like for introverts like you, Mimi, it's easy, right? It's easy to be home. For me, as an extrovert, I'm actually a bridge. I'm like what do they call them? The in-between of introvert, extrovert. There's like another terminology. Anyways, I'm kind of on the brink of that. Like, I really need time home to retreat and to be in my creative power. But then I need time to be out and to see friends and be social. So for me, it's an interesting time, because I actually really am enjoying being home, and my man's home, and that's super new, which I think is a whole nother invitation for like a podcast to do around relationships right now, because so many of us are experiencing not only relationship differences and new things happening there with us being more home, but also with kids. Like, I personally don't have kids. Mimi, you don't either, so I can't speak to that situation, but I've heard how hard it is, because it's not only that they're working still from home, but now they're working even more because they've got kids. So my question around that for you, Mimi, is kind of like, how can someone navigate this while they maybe are on the front lines still working, and they've got kids, they've got family, they've kind of almost got more work to do, but how do they shift that, and focus and still allow for that time to have a pause and to be with this shift that we are all being called to sort of go within? I think that there's that like barrier that a lot of people are experiencing in real reality. So what do you have to say about that?
Well, perfect that you ask, because on April 7th, we're going to have a full moon in Libra. And we all know that Libra is the zodiac sign that rules relationships. So as we are learning to adapt and adjust with all of these changes, we've got to somehow at some point figure out, well, where's the balance in all of this? And also during that time, Venus, which is the planet connected to Libra, will have entered Gemini. So Gemini is all about adapting. It's all about communicating. So if people can figure out and be really conscious about what's working and what's not working and be able to communicate with their partners, how can we adapt and adjust given the circumstances? And I really think that that's really the best way to use this astrological transit to our advantage in handling and managing this quote unquote disruption. But I think it will bring closer together how we relate to each other at home. And with our kids, yes, having our kids all the time at home suddenly instead of having our kids at school really will test our patience for sure, and to learn how to be patient. And that's right before the full moon happens. Venus is actually still in Taurus before it enters Gemini. Actually, Venus enters Gemini on April 3rd. So, hopefully that we've learned how to be patient throughout the month of March and the end of March, because that's really what Venus is doing, is testing our patience and allowing us to recognize in our discomfort, like as we're being pulled out of our comfort zone and being uncomfortable, feeling out, oh, what is frustrating? What is difficult? What is, Taurus doesn't like change. So we're constantly being tested, at the end of March, what needs to be changed, but what we refuse to change. And then suddenly, as Venus enters Gemini early on in April, can release that tension of, okay, well, that's the reality of what it is, and we've got to adapt. We've got to talk it out. We've got to find a different way to relate with each other.
Right. Yeah, I think it's, you kind of nailed it on the head. There's so much magic in patience. And I was watching a Wayne Dyer, which I love Wayne Dyer. If you guys haven't got deep into Wayne Dyer's medicine, it's just so potent. His voice is so beautiful. But there was a video I was watching, and it was called The Magic of Patience. And there is magic in patience because, when we look to nature, going back to Mother Earth, how she teaches us everything, we look at how everything happens in an orderly divine timing, and patience is a virtue. Patience is like a gift that when we tap into that, how deep we can go, I really think we're going to have an easier time navigating these often uncertain, transformative moments of change. And the thing is, change is always going to happen. We see, I've constantly been talking about change is inevitable, change is constant. We're always going to be in change and hopefully changing ourselves. And if you're listening to this podcast, I assume you're on the path of transformation to some degree and changing yourself for, the betterment of yourself, for your community, for your tribe, for your loved ones, your humans that you are feeding every day, etc. And I think that that's where this path of not only patience, but uncertainty, these two things are really uncomfortable for, especially I'm Taurus rising. So that I know. And any of you Tauruses out there that are feeling that like stubborn wave, like, no, I want to stay this way. I want to stay everything to stay comfortable, to stay safe. And I think that that's, it's a good invitation right now to just stop and recognize that none of that it's not gonna get us anywhere. And in fact, it might create more stress in the body, which is exactly what we want to be moving away from right now. Are there like some insights on sort of that, like the navigating, because this is going to be, I really feel like the next couple months. So what are some things that, you can kind of support people with to help navigate, aside from some of the things that we've discussed?
Yeah. So what's coming through as you're asking me these questions is, and also knowing the upcoming transits, the best way to handle all of it, and you mention it over and over, these are times of uncertainty. And that one thing that is constant is change. And as human beings, we hate change, even though intellectually we understand the concept that nothing is the same all the time. Like, change is inevitable.
Right.
So how do we move through it? It's coming to the terms of embracing change. Like, can we shift the narrative of, yes, these uncertain times, to what is certain in the now, in our own way of creating stability, comfort, security within ourselves, and as a ripple effect of, when we can stand in certainty, we will inspire security and certainty in others. So
I love that.
Yes, I don't know maybe what is actually going to happen to my job tomorrow, but that's the truth, whether or not we are in a viral outbreak. Because anything could have happened in, let's say, the company we work in that we're not privy of, and it's going to blindside us. And it's just an illusion. Security and certainty is actually an illusion, because, to be honest, sometimes the things that we think is stable and real and certain and foreseeable and predictable can catch us blindsided and come at us and say, oh, well, you're being let go. Or, oh, well, your car just got towed because you forgot to read the signs, the street sign that's a no parking zone, right? Like, anything can happen, but it's an illusion to think that we know. So if we live in the embracing of, there's nothing that we really, really know, and training ourselves to learn how to address adversity, knowing ourselves so deeply that we have it within us to handle uncertainties at any given time, whether pandemic or not. And to trust within ourselves that we have the support. We can ask the questions of, okay, well, now this is gone. What can I do? How can I put myself in a situation where I am still safe, physically safe enough to know how to solve for this sudden change in my life? And yeah, of course, this, tapping into our own spiritual path, our own inner self, meditating, connecting with, knowing, like, it's kind of what Gabby Bernstein says, to know that the universe has my back, to know that everything is working for me. These are very cliche things, but now it's the practice of it.
Oh yeah, baby. I feel like we're finally in the true testament of how much work have you really done on yourself, and how much are you now really applying it, like putting it to action, because we've, to some degree, we all are in a stage of learning and studying, and then the student gets to go, try out all the teachings. I've been watching a lot of Netflix, not gonna lie. Really,
me too.
Totally happy about all these old movies that have actually been really inspiring me. Like, I've watched Avatar. I just watched the two of the Hunger Games, and something is guiding me. I am super on this, like, following the breadcrumbs with movies right now, and how some of these movies I've been guided with just like little hints here and there, like, oh, watch this, or little voices come in meditation. And I feel like because these themes inside of these movies are like, the saving of the day, the light wins the dark. In Star Wars, I've been watching Star Wars, the new Star Wars, just came out, and now we have access to some of the movies that were supposed to come out in theater, right? So we watched Star Wars, and that right there paints us a picture of, the true path of the light and dark, the Jedi. And I love the story of mastery. The story of learning from a master and truly coming into that path of mastery. So I invite you right now, if you have that opportunity to study more and more and more in that stage of what true mastery is for you. I think that's where also that Aries kind of comes in, a little that Taurus comes in, because we get led to, what is your true path? What is it for you? And I love that. I love that there's this beautiful story of the Jedi. You can't just become a Jedi. You are a Jedi born in nature, right? In Star Wars, but in essence, you've got to be trained by a master to become a true Jedi. Yep. So that's kind of where I think we are right now. Is like, now, okay, maybe we've done the training and now we are stepping into true Jedi form. Or maybe we're like, oh, I want to go learn now from a master to therefore learn how to apply this in life, because this is going to come up, like you said, over, and uncertainty is almost unknown. And now we're getting real intimate with it.
Yep. For sure. And also, mastery is what Capricorn is all about. That's why it rules discipline. It rules structure. That's really where mastery is coming from. And starting with owning who we are and having the patience to put in the work and creating that system and structure into place, and being courageous, again, Aries, to confront and face those structures that are not working.
Yeah, definitely.
All the old Capricornian stuff that needs to go. We don't know what needs to go unless we are confronted against these big adversities. That's the only way to mastery.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can't get anywhere without a breakdown. To be quite frank, we've got to get through, and in fear too. Like, fear is a sign, fear is a clue. There's all these little clues around us, and while it can be really intense and really scary, and again to be with that and your emotions, I think, through these times, but I just really want to bring back the invitation to see things that you wouldn't often notice. Pay attention to the signs. Maybe stop and pause and see if there's any signs around you that are guiding you. A bee coming to say hello, and ladybug, whatever. How spirit is speaking to you right now. There's an opportunity to be I've been watching over and over, like, many different meanings of what this all is, both on a spiritual level and, while there's so much content and information out there, I would definitely recommend being discerning of some of the things. There's so many conspiracies out there, man. It's crazy. We won't get into that. But I think it's about realizing right now is a heightened time of a lot of people pausing. So maybe there's not as much energy going out. Like I've actually found an easier time to work during the day, whereas sometimes I like working when the energies are stiller. I can kind of get into that creative state, but that creative state is heightened right now because less and less people are doing. And here we are learning how to be.
Yeah. And very much with this shift with Saturn moving out of Capricorn and into Aquarius. So now here we are. Since our last recording, Saturn was still in Capricorn. And now I don't know who has felt this shift of energy, but Saturn has already entered Aquarius, and it's going to be here until July 1st. And there is a elevation of consciousness because Aquarius, if we choose to tap into the light side of Aquarius, it's the awakening. It is the conscious awakening into seeing how all of this is impacting humanity, much bigger picture, because Capricorn is all about our own personal achievements and success. And now my graduating from Capricorn energy into more of the community, the tribe, the people. And yes, we're going to regress back into Capricorn after July 1st until December 2020. So we're going to still come back to the Saturn in Capricorn. But this time gives us a glimpse of what's to come in 2021 through 2022, is that there is an awakening. And to see this and experience the awakening going back into Capricorn and then bring the new structure so that we can support this new elevation come 2021. The transit is happening. There are massive shifts, but how are we consciously using this energy for us to be a participant of this rising of this consciousness? And yes, it is, and it's the Aquarius energy very tapped into the uncertainty, but it's also the beauty. Aquarius people or energy loves the uncertainty. They thrive in uncertain times because it allows for possibilities. It's breaking out of the limitations and restrictions of all the rules and regulations.
Wow.
And so that's where the creation comes through.
Everything is connected. It is really fascinating, as always, to kind of take things and put them into a sort of metaphysical perspective and see things for, what they could be, what they truly are, and what is present for us and available for us at all times. So I think this is really enlightening. Do you have any last final words for us, Mimi, as we kind of close this out? Anything special going on that we must know about aside from all the things?
Don't be afraid to go within, and that the light is always at the end of the tunnel. It all depends on how you're going to walk through this tunnel to reach the light.
Yeah, that kind of brings me back to that quote by Albus Dumbledore himself. It's something with like, there's often one can be, oh gosh, I'm going to screw it up. You guys, Dumbledore's quotes, I got to look it up now because I'm like, if I don't say this right, it's really good. It's like, happiness can be found even in the darkest of times if only one remembers to turn on the light.
Oh, that's so good.
One of my favorites. So it's just remembering that, if you feel like you're in that space, like turn on your light. And that sometimes is you going inward and stay lit, turn that light on, and And I've been doing a lot of light grids around me since all of this, every morning, kind of setting that intention to just be held by this light. And I think that's really important right now. Really important. What are some other ground? I know I've gotten some questions actually from some sisters who've been kind of struggling through all these energies. What would you say? What are some things that you would advise on grounding practices throughout this time, especially since we are in Aries season, and it kind of becomes a little bit more heady?
Move your body.
Yeah.
I literally had one of my mentors created a dance party via Zoom over the weekend. And so move your body, right? Aries is all about using your body as the vessel. Otherwise, it is more susceptible to attack into the immune system. So Aries is all about vitality, energy. So move your body. And whether it's just doing jumping jack or just turn on the music, your favorite song, and just shake that booty. So that's very grounding, and moves all of that heady energy. Any type of meditation that brings us back to our root chakra, right? That's very Aries. Yeah. It's that primal energy and place in our body, in our system, in our, in us. And hey, one of my friends was saying, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of coronavirus babies.
I knew you were just going to say that.
So Aries is very sexual, and that's an opportunity to bring ourselves back to our physical form.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really get connected to. Such a great opportunity to get intimate with your partner in new ways. Maybe you guys are working from home. We've been talking about having a little quickie lunch session, like have fun with it. Yeah. And I think there was some joke out. It was like, after the baby boomers came this, and this, and then the corona something, there was some terminology. I don't know. I've heard it. There's been a lot of funny things out there. And, I think, we've got to take all those things with humor, because laughter is also very, very medicinal as well. So
absolutely.
I love those grounding exercises. I would have to agree with all of them. And also I think the movement one has really been supporting me the most, just turning on music and dancing and just allowing for all the stagnant energy to move through me. So thank you so much, Mimi, for coming on as always. For those that are interested in working with Mimi, getting a reading, now might be a great time to really understand if you're like at a big halt, a big pause, and you're like, what's next in my life? Where am I going to be going? Mimi can definitely support you, read your chart, and help navigate through these times. So where can everybody find you?
Yes, this whole weekend was just a bunch of readings, because people do want to know what's next for them. So they can find me at exalted.com, IGZOLTED.com. And also my Instagram handle is also exalted. So DM me.
Yay. Thank you so much, sister. I love you all. Thank you for being here, and know that you are definitely supported through all this, and we're here. And I love you. I see you. I hear you. Bye. I will see you next week. Thanks so much, Mimi, for coming on the show once again.